Hey there.
Hey!
How you doing? Hold on one second. Let me get this audio up a little bit.
Okay. I'm so glad this worked.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm not so techie. So
Either. Me either. So let me get this right. I don't know if you heard about my escapades with Prosecutor Savitt.
What happened?
Second interview with him, because I didn't know to record the Zoom. I thought it was just recorded when you got on. So, silly me. And we did about 60, 70 minutes.
Oh.
Went looking for it. And I'm like, I don't think I recorded this shit.
Oh, no.
I start Googling, I start texting people, and they're like, it should show up in your email. And I'm like, okay, no problem. I was like, well, it's not showing up. So like 2 hours later, I came to the conclusion that it hadn't recorded. I didn't have it in my email. It wasn't on my hard drive. And I was just like, whatever.
Oh, shoot.
The next morning, the very next morning, I sent Ellie a message and I said, look, I told you I was old. I didn't know how to do this. and I begged his forgiveness. And I, you know what? I need to do this over. Our conversation was very organic. It was very real.
That's great. And
we did it last night. We redid it last night. He had a busy month. You probably know about that.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
So he had a busy month, and I was glad that we were able to get him back on. And
yeah,
a great guy. But
good. That's great.
Not really big on formalities, but I am going to give you your kudos. I'm going to talk about who you are and why you're here. But thank you.
Yeah.
In this.
Thanks for reaching out.
See, and this is a funny thing. We're going to get into this in a minute. You know some people I know.
I can't wait to hear.
So you know Jennifer Belair.
Of course. How do you know Jen?
I went to school with Jen.
Oh my God.
I went to school with Jen, and we've known each other for. Okay, so I'll be 51 Saturday.
Happy birthday.
Other at least 30.
Oh.
36, 37, 38. That'd be 13. I met her 12, 13 years old. So 38, 30.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
Serious. I've known her this long. And Jen has a different place in my heart. And we'll talk about this off camera. Jen has a different place in my heart. But it was so funny when I put up the PDF to talk about, who I was going to be having on.
Yeah.
She hit me. She texted me, didn't do the Facebook thing.
Ah.
No. So she can talk to me pretty much the way she wants, and she gave me a little bit of intel on you. So that was a good thing. But
love it.
She's just a different person in my life than a lot of people.
Is that right?
She's one of the most real people that,
yeah.
I mean, I just, I don't have to tell you,
So, she's great. So great.
Yeah. And she's one of the reasons why I'm in this space. I mean, I started talking about politics stuff last year. And I would ask her things, because she knows things. She knows some people.
Yeah.
Well.
And she's done advocacy.
The way I wanted them to happen in the primaries and in the general. But one of the things that she was always able to give me was really constructive advice.
Yeah.
And I figured out I can't ever say that I've been a Republican. I'm really having a hard time saying I'm a Democrat. I'm definitely an independent.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I down balloted, for the presidential election because I just didn't see somebody out there for me this time.
Yeah.
I did before in other elections, and this time I looked at one and I said, definitely not. And then I looked at the other and I said, if he does, and it never happened. So I never got to that point.
Yeah.
Two, I saw a promise. See, this is how much homework I did at first. I didn't. I really thought you were still a commissioner. Because on your old political stuff, updated anything. I didn't even realize, but I went back and looked at my old voter form and I voted for you.
Yay!
I said, as much as the name Felicia has been dragged through the mud over the last 20
I know.
and now it's really fashionable to say bye, Felicia. I said, could a Felicia be that bad politically? I've got to at least give Felicia a chance. But no, I thought you were actually still a commissioner.
Yeah.
A whole different set of questions for you if you were still.
Yeah.
But you've been elevated, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I feel so lucky.
I want to introduce you now. Yeah. You are a state representative, 55th district state representative.
You got it.
And Felicia Brabec. But the things that you ran on hit close to me because those are the things that I speak about. You know, I'm a man. I talk about my village all the time, and I talk about certain things. And the points that I want to hit with you tonight, and we'll go some other areas, but the points that I want to hit are really the things that are close to me and close to the people that I know. In this melting pot of Washtenaw County, I still think we need things that people in Detroit need. I still think we need things, you know, I mean, our school system may be a tad bit better than the one in DPS, but we still have some flaws.
A ways to go, of course.
We have a ways to go.
Yeah, of course.
And we may be economically a little bit more fit than our folks on the other side of 275, on the other side is Telegraph Road, but we still have a ways to go.
Absolutely.
Ellie and I talked last night. You know, I feel good that I can call him Ellie. I don't have to call him prosecutor or stand right next to him as a defendant. We talked about mental health. I try to talk about mental health with anyone in public.
Thank you.
Because it's important. In full transparency, I had what I probably know as my very first panic attack, anxiety attack. Most recently. And it was very strange to me. It was just something I catch my breath. Catch my breath. I'm fat. I know I'm fat. I can't catch my breath. If I overexert, if I overexert, I can't catch my breath. I get that. But I couldn't catch my breath this day. And crazily, I was 10 feet out of my driveway. Put the car in reverse. Back the car up. Struggled to get out of the car. Walked in the house. And thankfully, Rachel was there.
Good.
My daughter was there. My daughter's up. She didn't know. She got her AirPods on. She didn't know. But after a few glasses of water and some calming conversation, my granddaughter sat on my lap. I came back around. But it's caused me to schedule a doctor's appointment too, because I want to know what the hell caused that. Other than me being fat and out of shape.
Oh my gosh.
Why that day?
That's right.
Not any other day. I got stressors every day. I got issues every day. That day, you know? So
what all came together?
Yes. That was one of the things I want to talk to you about. And then last thing we'll touch on is something that's obviously close, because anybody that mentions the city has something for it. And you mentioned a city that we know has gone through hell, at least since 2014. Before that, obviously.
That's right.
I'm really making sure, because I checked the box of gallery view. So I want to make sure that this video is going to be gallery view, because Ellie and I last night must have been on speaker view, where when you talk up, see, it showed us like this. It did show side to side, and at the end it only flipped when and when he was talking. So I'm going to back off, and when I back off, I'm not being dismissive, just in case it doesn't. Gallery view, because I'm old as shit. So I see the check box, so I think it's there.
That sounds great.
So now, can you tell how Jen and I could be good friends just by the first couple minutes? Okay, now you know. Now you know. So, but I appreciate you being here, taking time out of your busy day after your busy day. I mean, right now it's time. I mean, it's time to really do some work.
It is.
We've had a crazy 4 years that we've dealt with. This last now 11 months almost of what we've dealt with. And there's a lot of things that have to get done, because things were stymied, things were stopped, and, you know, things were disruptive.
That's right.
We've got to get that. We've got the disruption out of the way. Now we've got to get back to work. And one of the things that is true and really dear to my heart, because I still have a high schooler and I've got grandkids that are going to come through the school system. School funding.
Yep.
I've done some research on it in my novice abilities of doing it. Can you tell me just and give me, because you ran on school funding, you want to see tangible funding for education. You don't want to just see dollars doled out here. They have to be purposeful. They have to be
strategic.
Exactly.
Yep.
Is it true that every school district pretty much gets the same, or every county pretty much gets it? Is it spread across the board evenly, money-wise? Is that true?
Okay. So what I would say and so I'm still learning too.
Okay.
Right. So, I feel like I am, a couple weeks, on the job.
Okay.
So I have a big, uphill climb to be able to learn all that I want to know, to be able to be helpful.
Okay.
Right? And effective. And so here's what I'm learning. So in our kind of K through 12, our school aid funding.
Okay.
Right. That, yes, there's a formula, but what we have, and there are some districts though, who do get more from that formula. What I am wanting to know more about is, okay, what are all the nuances in that formula, right? Like what's considered in that formula? So those are the questions that I'm starting to ask.
Got it.
But what I do feel like is a remarkable difference is we have some communities who can do millages.
Okay.
Right? And we have other communities who cannot, right? And that makes a huge difference.
Okay.
Right. So for example, here in Ann Arbor, we have the sinking fund millage, right? Like, so for physical property,
sure.
Or we just did the $1 billion bond, right? For infrastructure and all those things. I don't know a lot of communities that could do those kinds of things.
Got it.
Right. And so what do you do? So to me, that is, these are issues that we need to kind of think about and look at much more holistically, right? Like not just at the funding that only comes from the state, right? We need to look at these things much more holistically. I mean, I can think of, I was having a conversation with some people, this was a while ago, Shannon, and I said to them, I wonder what it would be like if we did, even in like Ann Arbor School District, like that's where our kids go. Our kids go to Ann Arbor schools. And I said, I wonder what it would be like if we did a district-wide PTO.
Okay.
You're like, so what would that look like? Because I know that even at some schools within Ann Arbor schools, the money that PTO is able to raise is hugely variable. Right? So even within the school district.
Right. He talked about that, like the budget at Pittsfield was like 12,000 or something like that. And then like the budget at King or Thurston.
Very different.
25.
Very different.
It was ridiculous. I'm like, how
very different.
Possible?
But it is, right? Like, and what's interesting though is, and we talk about this, right? When we talk, I mean, I think this is kind of infused in everything, but it's uncomfortable for people to talk about, but we talk about privilege, right? And when we're in those places of privilege, either we ourselves or other folks, folks are reluctant to give that up. We know this, right? And so it was interesting as I was just asking people, like, I'm curious, what do you think about this idea? Right. And people were kind of like, oh, yeah, I don't know about that.
And are they scared of bringing, and I did a video earlier about diversity, diverse pockets of people together, knowing going to have such diverse ideologies together, or does nobody really want to discuss the 10,000 and the 100,000?
Right. The reality.
Right.
So I think part of it, and this is something that we do have to figure out, right, and have conversations about, is I think that there can be a misnomer, and this can happen actually sometimes, but sometimes it's a misnomer. Like, if we share in that way, then my kid isn't going to have access to the things that I want him or her to have access to.
Got it.
Right. So in these very real ways, it becomes personal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And and I think that when we're tied to things in personal ways like that, wonderful things can happen, but we can also, in those some instances, get really myopic.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And not pick our heads up to see, oh gosh, if I gave just a little bit more, my kid could have this great experience, but so could this other kid.
Exactly.
Right. So could this other kid have this fantastic experience as well.
Right.
And that can be scary because it's different and it might be unknown. All of us, we have to adapt to change, right? It can be anxiety producing, for us to think about. And so I think it's kind of, all of this mixed up to create that. But I think part of why I was even asking the question to people was just to kind of even try and plant a seed, right? Like that, if we can, just plant that seed, maybe we can continue to have conversations.
Right.
And, I think about that and the work that we get to do in the political arena, that I often in my head, and I talk about it like this with folks all the time, like I often in my head have a North Star. I'm like, this is where we're going.
Right.
I really want to go here, but I know that, and I've even said what that North Star is, and people have been like, Felicia.
Right. I mean, and that's a crazy thing to me, because I've never been one to think like, let's just go over there. I figure if we can go over there, we can go way down there. A lot of people just want to go right there.
Right.
I lose people. Lose people because of my passion.
Sure.
And it's not so much that, and I've had to conform to this thinking, it's not so much that people have a lack of passion, they just don't have as much as I have. So when I say going all the way down there, in theory, they want to go down there with me.
They do too.
Yeah. They just don't really see it and run out of gas way before I do.
Yep.
And before long, you get to running and you're out there like,
where's everybody?
And that's our crazy thinking.
Yeah.
That's our crazy thinking. It's like, we think because we can conceive it, everybody else can conceive it. Can't.
Yeah. But it's also, what you're talking about, I think is really important, because it's part of, like all of us working together is like, there are those of us who are, can be really good about seeing that North Star, but then also holding that we need to make approximations to that. Right. And we build for that. And that's usually how we are able to build coalitions.
Right.
Like is that those incremental steps that and that's also how we're able to kind of get people who are like, looking at us sideways about things, right? Like on board.
Right.
Are those incremental steps. And then before we know it, it's just over the ledge here. Like we're super close. Right. And so, I think being able to kind of hold that big picture and, okay, what are the steps that we need to take? Who do we need to bring into the fold when? Who's missing from these conversations that conversations that needs to be here, right? Like all these questions that we need to ask. I feel like to be able to do good work, whatever the avenue is for that, right? Whatever the setting is, whether that's in our communities, our schools, Lansing, whatever. I feel like that it can work.
Right.
It can work.
See, so are you saying that if we're in discussions about, let's say, and we're not going to really touch on this subject because it's not in our window tonight, but if we're talking about abortion, are you saying that middle-aged to elderly white men in this room with no women around wouldn't be a good way to have this discussion?
Maybe just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. But this is the way.
But that's what happened. What has happened historically.
Yes.
In so many ways, we know this, right?
Yes.
And so it takes, I'm sure you're the same way, Shannon, like, that we've been able to have opportunities where sometimes we're the only ones. Right. At the table. And I know that I feel when that is the position that I get to be in, feel a grave responsibility, right? To be able to make clear what viewpoints aren't being discussed, but also make sure that I get invited back. And so do other people. Right. So do others. Right. So that the table gets expanded. Right. And so I'm acutely aware of that when it happens. Right. That for some people, this may be, even in this day and age, right? Like, maybe some of the first times that they're sitting down with someone who looks like me or you,
right.
or, you know, and talking about things in this way, right? I mean, I literally, right, like have had people and talking about like racial inequity, you know, have folks in that kind of like white older male category say, you know, like, I never realized that I had privilege, Felicia, until we started having these conversations, right? You know, like, and it's something that all of us can happen to all of us, you know, and I say this, I keep this saying in mind for myself, but also share it with people. Like, you know, fish doesn't know it's wet, right?
This is very true. This is very true.
And so we have to we all have blind spots, right? We all do. And so, you know, I try to be, even, you know, sometimes when it can be kind of flabbergasting, right? To hear that in this day and age, hear those things, you know, like what, I don't understand this. How can you not, you know, but part of me is also in that space of, thank you for sharing that with me, right? Like, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. And wow, we can now do different work.
Right.
Because you were able to say that, right?
The misinformation and miseducation of people brings on that ignorance. I mean, and it's unfortunate because we've had enough time to where people should know why we are, just because of the melanin in our skin, in the positions that we are. Some people have definitely had better opportunities, and some people have definitely had worse opportunities, worse situations. But somewhere in the middle, somebody should have came along and said, whoa, you know, there's a gap here. There's a huge gap here where you have people who literally in 2021 are being fed. We talk about a silver spoon. Some people are being fed. They have that money where they can pay a person to feed them their food. I hate to see scenes like where people are walking down the street and somebody's holding an umbrella for them. A person over here that doesn't have shoes. In this, I understand third world situations. I understand underdeveloped situations. I'm talking about in this
here. That's right.
Somebody's keeping someone from being wet by rain. Here, this person has a pair of shoes. I'm not saying that person deserves to have a person hold an umbrella for them. But some shoes. Just get some shoes. Can we start with the basics? And funding for schools, when I started looking into that, I was like, well, wait a minute. So a smaller school district with probably lesser needs, if they get roundabout the same type of money that a larger district, they're still
very different.
That money for whatever. I don't know if it was a city, and I didn't actually look this up, but Fox News is my thing in the morning, and it's a place called Fremont. It's in Michigan. They talked about this state-of-the-art school that they built. And you're talking, it was built off of, is it Sandy Hook? There's been so many now. Sandy Hook was a school shooting, right? They built this school in the model to combat a situation so it wouldn't happen there.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry, but and I gotta find it. I'm gonna get it. I'll get it. I'm watching this and I'm thinking of, I mean, we're talking like electronic this and sensors that, all kinds of stuff in this remote territory. We've got problems in Washington County. We've got problems in Wayne County. I'm sorry, I never heard about any instances that happened in that area. But because the revenue is there, the revenue is available, they don't need it for books. They don't need it for certain things, for after school programs and then that these other districts have to siphon money out of people, have millages, whatever. Utilizing it to make a.
That's so fascinating.
You know, I'll get it for you.
Please.
I'm like, I never heard about any instances happening in there. And fresh on my mind for a while, then I just forgot about it because it just lets me know the disparities of the money is not going to the proper places. It's just not. We know that Detroit public schools have been in trouble for, I don't know how many years. It's a long time, right? Why don't they get more help?
Like, why can't we give them the help? I was.
Is that something that is it not going to happen because they just see the problem is just too great to tackle or take away? How does that change?
Yeah, so I think that is a good question, right? Like, does the problem feel too big to tackle? And I do think that happens, right? Like, you know, I see that with budget numbers, right? Like, you know, we can present a budget that is, you know, $100 million and no one will have any questions, but then we start talking about 10,000 and you know, we can't get past it the entire night, right?
Right.
Because it's people can at least wrap their brains around $10,000.
Right.
But 100 million, it's like, it becomes too much. And at the state level, it's even more, right?
Right.
You know, and so I do think there's something to what you're saying, that sometimes the issue feels so big, people don't know where to start.
Right.
Like, and it feels overwhelming. And so people are like, you know, but I know that there are enough people out there who do want to figure it out. I was really excited when I got to read the article. Oh, you may be able to help me remember when this was. I think it was this summer or maybe even before, where you know, DPS is now going to be, you know, paying their teachers a higher salary, like $50,000.
I believe it was pre-COVID.
Was it? Yeah, it was recent.
I believe it might have been. It was pre-COVID.
Okay.
It wasn't that long ago.
No.
They just got to this. It was like 19 maybe.
Yes, it wasn't that long ago, right?
Right.
But we know that, like, you know, we have had. So I've been able to be part of a statewide task force because of the racial equity work that I got to do here and get to do here in the county. Some of that got noticed by the Michigan Department of Civil Rights.
Okay.
And so I got asked to be on this statewide task force looking at disparities. And what we've focused on are local municipalities, so, you know, counties, cities, townships, and education.
Okay.
So I've gotten to sit in this room and learn from these educators about what they're seeing. Okay. And to me, you know, like, one of the biggest takeaways that I heard from, I can't remember if it was one of the superintendents who was talking, or they had one of the districts had like a DEI lead, and was talking about how many teachers are leaving the state and how many teachers of color are leaving the state, right? And how important it is, you know, to have those teachers, I feel like particularly teachers of color, in those roles for our kids, you know, like, to be able to have models to see possibilities.
People don't look at that as something that's important, but that was one of your points that you ran on as well, was retaining our educators.
Yes.
You can't just let them come here, get loans, because you can go to another state and have Michigan on your resume. Oh my God. I mean, they're going to applaud you. You're probably going to make more money. You're more marketable. So why would we allow people to come here, get real shiny, and then go somewhere else?
Yeah.
We need to retain our educators here.
We do. Yep, that's exactly right.
And not compensating them adequately.
Right.
One way to not do that.
Bingo. That's exactly right. And so when Detroit did that, I was like, yes, this is great. Like, it's a good first start, right? Like, being able to pay the educators to stay and to be in our, you know, like, our schools, our neighborhoods, you know, like, being able to be here makes such a huge difference. You know, I was talking to some folks in kind of the economic development world, and saying that they're seeing some of the same things, you know, with young professionals just in general.
Right.
We have young professionals going to EMU, going to Michigan, right? Like, going to other state schools and other universities, and then leaving. And then leaving. And so I was like, okay, what are some of the issues? And part of what we're finding out is, you know, again, some of the things that we were talking about at the very beginning, like, some of the things that young people and potentially people starting families, like young people, care about, right? Like, good schools, transportation, good affordable housing, right? Like, all of these infrastructure, you know, like, all of those things, you know, for a long time, it feels like there's been a lack of investment in those areas here in our state, right? And that there are ripple effects to that. And part of it, I feel like, are people leaving.
Do you think the state held on to losing the auto industry too long?
That's interesting. That's an interesting
discussion with someone about this, because we have too many dead pockets around the state.
Mm-hmm.
And we can
put manufacturing.
Or where the manufacturing used to, where it's not anymore.
Yeah.
And those cities and towns, municipalities, how they died.
Yeah, they got built up around the manufacturing.
Exactly. It was built around the manufacturing.
Right.
It's not that Jackson is flourishing, but it's never going to die because Jackson has Jackson State Prison.
Right. So there's another.
Are going to continue to, if not at least survive. They may not be thriving, but they'll be surviving. Ionia, you don't see people rushing off to Ionia, but you don't see people leaving Ionia either because they got a prison there.
They have the prison, right?
There's a base. Yep. There's a base, an employment base. And it's unfortunate that, I don't even know what the names of the school, if it is Ionia High, but probably in 2020, there's some kid. What are you going to do after you graduate from school? I'm going to state. I got in there. What are you going to do? I'm going over to work at the prison.
That's exactly right.
Because it's a generational thing.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I talked with, my husband, Dave, grew up in Milan.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So right here. And what he talks about is the same thing that you're talking about, right? Like, he knew, kids in high school, right, were like, if they were talking about, and obviously it's not the only path, right? Like talking about higher ed or, or other skilled trades or, like what work is available, that more often than not, right, kids would say, well, I don't need to go get a higher degree. And again, that's not the end all and be all. I want to be clear, but part of what they say is, I can work at the plant or I can work at the prison. Right. But then there are not necessarily other skills that are developed that if something happens to those fields, then what do you do?
Where's your plan B?
Then what do you do? Exactly. And so it's, I'm appreciative for places like here in our county, like WCC, that make a concerted effort, right? And in terms of adult education and our skilled trades, and they, like really, really invest in that. Because then it offers, everyone, more opportunities. But I think that you're absolutely right, that happens and there aren't other avenues for people, right? There aren't other avenues for people.
I just learned about college track and general track.
Mm-hmm.
So they say, when you go into high school, there is a college track and there's a general track.
Yeah.
It's when you take the AC and AP classes and things like that. And then it's just your basic 4 core. They get your PE in there and you got to take that, whatever that to get you to graduate.
That's right.
You really want to go on to a higher educational level, you've got to take the AC and AP classes.
That's exactly right.
Who's telling these kids that in these smaller towns?
That's right. Or what do you do if you're high school, right? Some here, like right by around us, who don't have the capacity to offer AP.
There you go.
Right, like that is a problem. I mean, I was saying this to some parents when I was campaigning. I was like, from some of the schools that our kids go to, I was like, none of us would be okay if our high schools did not offer AP classes.
Right.
None of us would be okay with that.
Right.
Just wouldn't be a thing, right?
Right.
But you hit on 2 points. One, just them not being there, but 2, there is a there's, I don't want to say institutional, but it is actually institutional knowledge that gets passed along sometimes generationally, that if you don't know it, again, how do you know? Right. Like, so if you don't know, oh geez, I need to be taking a push, right? Like I need to be taking, AP English, AP Bio, like I need to be taking all these classes, like, and you're doing school and you think you're doing well and getting good grades, but you don't know to take them. Like, it's not that kid's fault, right? Like, how's that kid supposed to know? Like, we just have to do a better job.
Exactly. And I don't think that, it's not that I've gone to probably more than 3 or 4 career resource centers.
Yeah.
I know that some of the smaller districts probably don't really have a career resource center.
Yeah.
The career resource center may be their counselor. You may go in and they see you excelling at the level that school performs at. And so you're an AB student. And
that's right.
And then they say, have you ever thought about going to college? And you say, well, yeah. but then you really can't offer them the standard because you don't prereqs at that school. So then what do you do to that kid? You're offering that kid to go to community college to get all their prereqs out of the way so they can go to your institution. Effectively, I think a lot of these small districts are almost 2 years behind. So you have to go get that associate's degree, fill in, get your prereqs, and then be on your way to a 4-year degree. But they should already be academically fit when they leave high school to go to a 4-year institution.
So yes, I think you're right. It's also some of the smaller districts, but also I've learned from talking to more people, like it's also some of our more rural communities as well, right? Same kind of a situation. But I will tell you, one of the, if it's okay to add this, is one of the bills that I literally will be turning into the clerk tomorrow is to increase. Right now Michigan has the second worst ratio of student to school counselor.
What?
Second worst. We are 1 school counselor to 691 students. And that number is the most recent data that we have, Shannon, and that's from 2018 to 2019. So it could be even worse.
One human.
Think about that. So this is one human, and we're talking about this, right? Like, and those school counselors are the people who help kids, right? Like, do that college planning when they're in high school. Right. They're different when our kiddos are younger, but in high school, that's what they're helping them do, right? Like college planning, like skilled trades planning, right? Like all of those things. That's what they're doing, and that's where we are as Michigan. So the bill that I'm dropping tomorrow is to have at least a ratio of 1 to 450. Do I think that that's great? No. Right? Like I don't think that 1 to 450 is where we need to be either. But it's an approximation.
1 to 450 from 691? Who said 4? Are you serious?
Yes. Yeah. So we're trying, and so I'm hoping that will get passed, and then we can move the needle further, right? Like because it is.
Felicia, you're kidding me, right?
No, I wish I was.
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm a numbers guy. I'm really a words guy, but I'm really good with numbers this way. 1 individual, right? 6. Let's go to 700. Let's just go to 700, okay?
Yeah.
In high school, 6 hours, max 7, mostly 6, right? 1 student an hour that goes to the counselor. That's 6 students. 5 days, that's 30 students a week. 6 times 5, 30. You got 691. We rounded to 7.
Yeah.
So it would take us 2 weeks to get to 60 students.
Yep.
So it would take us 20 weeks to get to 600 students. So it would take us just a little bit more than half.
So half a year. Half a year.
To get all the students, if a counselor spent an hour with every single student talking about their future, never being able to rehash with a student because they haven't gotten through all 700 yet.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
I agree.
How is that even? So now I know why.
But this is all, it's all intertwined, right? Like all these things that we're talking about, there are dominoes that fall, right? And so there are decisions that get made, right? Like, okay, we need to really invest in this in school. So we're going to pull out counselors, right? Because the immediate need is more over here, whatever it is.
Okay.
Right? So we're gonna not have as many social workers or counselors in the school because we really have this immediate need.
Right.
But there are long-term impacts, right? Like, so there's unintended consequences, right? So we might be able to address this immediately over here, but think about what we just talked about. People aren't prepared to make these kinds of decisions after high school. If they go to different places, they're leaving the state, right? Like there are all of these unintended consequences, right? So we're trying to kind of right the ship. And, in my estimation, right? And at least getting, we got to push it back this way, right? And starting to have at least more kids be seen. I mean, I would love if we had at least 1 counselor, at least 1 per school, at least 1. Right. And I think even 1 per school, when we have schools that are our Hurons and Pioneers and Skylines that are thousands and thousands of kids.
Right.
1's not going to cut it.
Right.
Right. But when I
Right.
think about our elementary schools, we might be able to do that. Maybe, like we have to see, but like, we don't even have that.
That's amazing.
Right. We don't even have that.
And if that statistic was obviously from 18,
Yep.
This went on for years, and we know we've had ebbs and flows with populations. So it could have been worse at one point.
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to think about that. But it could have actually been worse at one point.
Yeah. Yep.
How does a kid survive? I mean, because this is their lifeline.
That's exactly right. For some kids, right? Like this is their lifeline. And to our point before about like, how are kids supposed to know, right? When they don't know,
right?
Or their families don't know, right? Like through no fault of their own, right? Like, but how are kids supposed to learn when we have ratios like this?
Right. You get a counselor who, we look at those days, and they're not going to get an hour per student every day. That's just so much of a perfect world.
Yeah.
You got the kid that comes in, he got in trouble. He's got to talk to his counselor.
Yeah.
Got the girl who's pregnant.
Yeah.
Talk to her counselor. And
that's right.
So.
Yeah.
So the counselor has to go from no more fighting to pregnancy to, got a bad situation going on at home. Yeah. How do you talk about the future when you're talking about the present?
That's right. That's exactly right. I mean, I can tell you, as one of those people I was a therapist in a high school. I worked in a public high school. It was right when I finished my master's. I worked at a public high school back in Illinois, where I'm from, where I grew up. It had about 3,000 students. And I was the social worker who was in the dean's office. So what you just described, those were my days. Right? Like I had teachers who would refer students to me, but there might be a fight that happened and a dean calls me in.
Right.
Right. Parents are getting divorced and they're coming in to tell the school. I get called in. Right. Like this happened. Young girl's pregnant. Doesn't know what to do. Right. So, and oh, by the way, what are you doing after you graduate?
Right.
Right. When we can't offer these services to you because you're no longer a student. So there are these ripple effects, right? We push one domino and all these other ones fall. And I think that sometimes, it's like we were talking before, right? You can be really myopic and maybe do something that's right in front of you, but you got to pick your head up.
Right.
Right. And look at like, okay, if we do this, what are all the things that are going to happen? What are the unintended consequences, of these things? And so we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I see you working. That's why we're here. I look through a lot of stuff and I've always said, it's good to have a conversation with my buddies, and this, that, and the other, but I've always thrived on talking to people in power or in position. Maybe it's not so much power, it's more
position.
And when you talk to a person who's in position and the things that we're talking about, granted, we spent 45 minutes on funding for school education. So how the night's going to go. I don't have, so you won't be here till midnight. To know where you've been, to know what you've seen, it always goes back to, for me, who you are. You wouldn't see this the same way if we didn't look alike. You wouldn't see this the same way if you would never live some of these experiences.
That's right.
A person in position, sometimes I don't want to just talk to that person. I want to talk to somebody that's going to be able to relate to the people that I relate to.
Yep.
And understanding that, I mean, I had no idea about the therapist job. I had no idea. So you're not only, you're going to politic on this stuff, but you're politicking from experience. You're not politicking because it's just the thing, this is the flavor of the day thing. You're like, I got some real history with this thing. So you already know what doesn't work. But then again, you can't go from 691 down to 200 either.
Right.
Like,
I wish.
Yeah, can we shave a little bit of it off see that pass through.
That's right.
And, you know, so once again, it's about changing the thinking, changing the ideologies.
Yep. And getting that critical mass.
Exactly.
Right? To get behind you to say, yes, and sometimes if we make that gap, that chasm too big,
right,
we lose people, right?
Right.
So like we were talking about, right? Like the North Star. So yeah, I would love for that ratio to be way lower.
Right.
But I also am a pragmatist in that, you know, right now, as you know, right, in Lansing, as Dems, we are not in that position of power to move things, right? So I also have to think about things in terms of how many do I feel like this will even be able to get out of committee to have a hearing?
Right.
So I need to balance that too, right? Like that incremental change with the reality of the system.
Okay.
You know, and yeah, know that if I would love to say, you know, I'd love to have you know, 1 to 50 ratio.
Right.
That would be great. You know, like there are private schools who can have those kinds of ratios.
Right.
Fantastic. But we're not like, that would sit in committee, never get a hearing, never see the light.
You just walk by it every day like, oh, he's still there? He's still there? All right. We'll check on you in a couple more. Okay, yeah, I got it. You know.
Exactly.
You already know. You already know.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So, and that's logical. You know, that's logical. I mean, you want to swing for the fences. You want to swing for the fences. Everybody wants to hit a home run.
Yeah.
But you know, there's no way you're going to hit a home run with that. Yeah. So let me go out here and hit this single.
That's right.
Maybe a double.
And I'll advance the bases.
Somebody can hit you in. Right. That's the theory. I come from a lot of sports ideologies, and everybody wants to hit a home run.
Sure.
What you really need to score is 4 guys getting a single.
That's right.
4 guys get a single, you can score. Actually, one guy gets a single, he steals a base. Another guy gets a single.
Yeah.
He can bring them around.
That's right.
It depends on who you put up first, and it's fast enough to get around. See, and those theories I think can work in politics, but because the thinking has been so concrete, so many years that no one thought outside of the box.
Yeah.
And where we are now is we live outside of the box. We have to. Yep. I know the politics are still what they are, but to get things passed around here, you really gotta live outside the box.
You do.
I've often said since the election that Joe Biden doesn't win this election without early voting.
Yep.
I know Joe Biden doesn't win this election without COVID, but I know he doesn't win. And that was outside the box thinking by his team saying, you know what? His people are such followers of him. He's going to tell his people not to go vote early. So we vote early. We send in the absentee ballots. We do everything early.
Yeah.
Now, COVID was a great aid in that, so we didn't have overcrowding and this, that, and the other.
Which was great. Thank goodness.
It was great. It was great. You never heard about a lot of outbreaks or
thank goodness.
Yeah, you know, that was a great thing. And here this guy still garners 74 million votes.
I know.
More votes than the person who had more votes than anybody before these elections.
Yeah.
And Joe Biden needed those early votes.
Oh, yeah.
Over the top.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the thinking.
Yeah.
This individual. Because I said 74 million Republicans didn't vote for Donald Trump. 74 million people voted for Donald Trump.
I agree.
That's a problem. That's a problem in theory and reality.
Agree. Yes. Yes.
74 million.
Yes.
82 million, I believe it is, voted for Joe Biden, but he needed 82 million?
Right.
Beat a reality TV slumlord?
I know.
Really?
I know.
That's a problem. That's a problem. Because so many people had so much confliction with it, but they couldn't vote for this guy if they voted for him the first time. They couldn't vote for him again, so they came over to this side. Or Joe Biden, like I said, they had a plan. They marked. Oh, I donated to the campaign. Still getting text messages to this day. They'll $12 your ass to death. I tell you, they love it. they've been $12 me to death, but it's just one of those things where I donated to the campaign, one, because I wanted my free copy of the Lift Every Voice Act so I could read it. I didn't want to read it in pieces. I wanted to read it, and I wanted to, it took me a while, and I've read it a few times at this point. I also wanted to have the license to complain. If you're not doing for my people what I think you should be doing for my people, I'm going to complain. But I'm not going to complain just from the sidelines. I'm going to get inside.
Yeah.
The calls, I took text messages, I did everything for the Biden staff leading up to the election to tell them why I was a little bit iffy. Now, they wouldn't be talking to me if I didn't donate to the campaign. So I got to listen to this guy because I want him to actually. What I found was a lot of people didn't know what I knew. And I don't know much. A lot of people didn't know about the racial wealth gap. A lot of people didn't know about qualified immunity. A lot of people didn't even really know about the 1994 crime bill and who it directly affected and who it directly benefited. But these are people that were working for his campaign who were full-throated Biden supporters, who I was starting to wonder, are you really full-throated Biden supporter, or you just full-throated because they're paying you? And me, I was, my vote was never actually bought. It was never bought. I just gave it away for years. I gave it away and I didn't ask for anything. This time I said no. This time I stood up. And in down balloting, I feel the sense of responsibility that I voted my interests. I voted what's going to be for me and my family.
Sure.
Voted on all of my local stuff. I voted for all of my state stuff. But when that top ticket is, which is the first thing that's purposely done, they put the president on here. No, I think you should start at my local thing.
And go the other way.
And go the other way around. But they put the president thing first because then they don't want anybody else to think about the other stuff. My politics don't work that way. The way my politics are set up, I need to work from the local end, federal end. And some people didn't get that. They didn't understand it. They still ask me, what was that down ballot mess you were talking about? When I explained it to them.
It's so important. It's so important. And so, to your point, like you could argue, right? Like that the local races. Right. Not even your state ones too, but like your local ones impact your daily life more than that one that's at the top. Absolutely. And people don't realize what happens on the local end is going to dictate what's going to happen on the federal end, because of those people who are supposed to be working for you, who knock on your door. See, Joe Biden and Kamala didn't knock on my door. Right. People in Pittsfield Township or running for office in Pittsfield Township, county commissioner, even they knocked on my door. They were looking for my vote. That's right. Biden wanted my vote, but Joe Biden had people texting me, calling me. Right. Sure. They're sending out mailers. I get it. But the person that knocks on my door probably needs my vote a tad bit more than Joe Biden does. Or Joe Biden would have personally sent somebody there to talk to me after I donated. Hey, this person right here donated early. Go talk to them so maybe they can talk to both of their neighbors. Because see, when those people are walking through your neighborhood, they hit your house, they hit your neighbor's house. Every now and then you might be across the lawn talking to your neighbor, talking about what's happening. Of course. Absolutely. Of course. And that's how you build political collectives. My backyard is a polling station. That's going on election day. That's it. I know everybody's going. Are we going with the same unified spirit? Are we galvanized in our thinking? That we really need, better street cleaning here in our subdivision. That we need this park kept up better than it is, because that's our local politics. Our Pittsfield commissioners and this, that, and the other. But are we just thinking about that top one and then we don't care about the other? This place will, our street will remain unplowed, and people don't get that stuff. And I just really, I really hope that now that we've got the distractions out of the way, I know you're dealing with them in Lansing. It's crazy.
he was only in there 4 years. But you've got people that are in Lansing treating this as that person was president for 4 or 5 terms.
Yeah.
How did you become such a believer in a person who wasn't in politics in 2015?
Well, but also like who and you were talking about this before, Shannon, like who peddles and lies, right? Like I that's what's confounding to me. I truly, I'm just like, it's baffling to me.
You know he's lying. You know
it.
Lying, and you still support him.
And you're okay. You're like, or you excuse it, or you like, so there's this psychological term, that basically is like when we have a thought that we only look for the data that supports that thought. Right. And I feel like there was a combination of that happening. And unfortunately, and I mean, this is so awful, I feel like, and I find it despicable, but like, I also feel like he preyed on kind of the worst parts of us, which is our fear.
Right.
And then people believed that and then got sucked into it. Right. And it was so, I mean, I feel like it's been heartbreaking. It's been scary. It's been, like traumatizing, right? Like all those things to watch this happen.
Right.
But then to continue to have people say, like, well, he did these things were okay. I'm like, oh no. Right. Like there's so much damage and destruction. Like how I don't understand it. Right. But people only look at the things that, again, they have this thought. Right. So only look for the data that will support that.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have said, Donald Trump, you got this country that's so racist. Wait a minute. Donald Trump didn't start racism in 2016. The only thing that I'll ever give Donald Trump credit for was being a full-throated bigot.
Yeah.
Now, he masks that with whatever, but
money.
Donald Trump was a bigot when he, and here's the thing. I know bigotry generally just comes across the color line thing. But when you make fun of handicapped people, when you make fun of elderly people, when you make fun of anybody, when you make fun of people that are your colleagues.
Yeah.
He called Ted Cruz's wife ugly.
Right. It's so like out of like the realm.
He was elected president, Felicia.
Which is, that's what I'm saying. I don't understand it. Like, it's confounding to me, Shannon. It's confounding to me that, like, I mean, the way that he talked about women, the way, it just is, I can't square those, right? Like, I can't,
It doesn't make sense to me. So I don't try to make sense, but I just tell people like, dude, he just woke it up. Donald Trump benefited by social media. By cable, by the internet in general, because he could say something and it could hit 100 million people in 30 seconds.
Like that. Yeah.
Other presidents said much more detrimental shit, but they didn't have benefits of social media.
That's
it didn't come out till the next morning's edition of the paper.
That's right.
And only a fraction of those people got the paper.
Read the paper. That's right. That's exactly right. That I kept saying that. Oh, I'm sorry, Shannon, go ahead.
You're fine.
I after Trump was elected and we started to see these things happening, I was saying that, much to, I think what you're saying, is that what we've done is given him a permission slip, right? And he then in turn has given a permission slip to all of his, his followers to actually not check themselves, right? Like, because at some point people would they might think these terrible, racist, prejudicial things, but they might actually say, okay, wait a minute.
Right.
I shouldn't say this, or I shouldn't do this, or like there was that checks and balances, like, in the psychology world, I'd be like their frontal lobes were working, right? But that they gave them, there was a permission slip given that said, you don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
Go ahead, say, do all the things. And I feel like it's going to take us a while to recover from that, and to be able to have, you know, conversations in a much more, not only conducive, but just, you know, congenial way, right? To even like to show that we can disagree. It's okay. We're not going to agree on everything. And I'm going to set some lines. If there's going to be some things that you're going to bring,
right,
we'll let you know that that's not all right.
Right. People okay. Are talking to other people differently because he was president.
I agree.
One of the things totally that I don't let anybody do is just flat out disrespect me.
Sure.
Because they feel like they can.
Sure.
If I'm disrespectful to you, I expect you to be disrespectful to me. We're going to be disrespectful to each other, and then we'll part ways. But if you come at me disrespectfully because you feel like the person who is supposed to be running this country has given you the license to be an asshole, you better reconsider. You really reconsider. And it's unfortunately, people like us, when I say us, you know, speaking from a melanin sense, we take the brunt that when shit happens dealing with Black people. Why we got to catch it? Why we got it between him and what he said between you're just a regular person. We're right next to each other. You have no more. Right. I have no more than you. How are you so high and mighty to me? I understand his ideology. I understand you look at him as a leader, and he disrespected those people. But what you're going to do is come here and think you can talk to me that way. When we had the situation, Celine, why didn't you stay in Mexico? He was emboldened by Donald Trump.
You won't get an argument from me.
The collar and his belt, and he's been thrown out of that meeting because I know that if he had looked like us, there would have been a conference.
It would have been different.
It would have been a tad bit different. Just a tad bit. So I know that these people have been given the license by people like Donald Trump. The Proud Boys, you know, that mentality. That mentality was always there. Hell, we had the Ku Klux Klan.
That's right.
Ku Klux Klan started the same year slavery was abolished. Oh, you don't say.
You don't. It was just a coincidence, Shannon. What are you talking about?
They started the Klan the same year they stopped slavery. They're like, wait a minute.
Hang on.
This ain't right. So when I think of stuff like that, I'm like, really? I know it's not going to get right back to where we once had it, maybe, or we need to get. That's what Ellie and I talked about. You know, and even in talking to Senator Irwin, I didn't understand the Build Back Better thing. I don't know what Build Back Better means. I don't understand that ideology because it damn near sounds like Make America Great Again, because at some point it was really jacked up out here. We talking about that we want to build back better. I don't get it. Make America Great Again? When was it great for you, or when was it for me? I mean, we never figured out what that meant. I still don't know what Build Back Better. What I think what we need to do, and as Elliot talked about, I said, we have walls. And all we've done is repaint the walls. Every time he gets elected, we just repaint the walls. With Ellie, with yourself as a state rep, to go from a commissioner, state representative, now we got somebody, we talked about being at the table. Now we've knocked down a wall. We didn't repaint the wall. We knocked down a wall. We have to continue to knock down these walls.
That's exactly right.
We can't continue to repaint walls, the same walls that restrict us. We have to knock down.
And expect different results, right? So, we repaint them and then think it's going to be different.
Same wall. Right. Different color, just a different shade.
That's exactly right. So we do, you know, to your point before, Shannon, like we need to think differently, right? Like, and outside of the box, and do, you know, and do things either incrementally, right? To be able to get to, to get to that first base so that we can get to home plate, right? Like we need to do all those things. We need to figure out who's not at the table and and be in a position, when we talk about that positionality,
right,
actually be heard, right? So that when we're saying there are people who aren't here at the table that were taken seriously,
right,
and not just dismissed,
right,
right? And it takes, like there were certainly people whose shoulders, obviously, is, you can imagine I stand on so many people's shoulders, right? That were painting the wall, right? That allowed it to, like, they put cracks in it, right? So that we could break it down. But it takes us continuing to engage, right? That so that we can. I also feel like when we get to do this work, and I mean kind of advancing justice work, right? Whatever that, like, I feel like the mental health bills that I get to drop, like, that's, to me, that's all about that, right? Like,
right.
When we get to do that, like it's all of us working from different vantage points, right? So it's folks who have community, like you, right? Like, have the ear of the community, right? So it's you using your voice in the community. It's me turning in a bill in Lansing. It's like, it takes all of us doing all those things to be able to move forward. Because I don't think we can just have one, right, without the other. We all need to be working
exactly
in concert with one another to do this together.
And we've segued well. We've kind of glossed over it in different situations. Racial equity initiatives.
Yep.
One of the things that I hear all the time is that that there's these disparities, and there's this and there's that.
Yep.
I don't believe that you can change things around with a bill here, passing something here, this, that, other. There's got to be drastic change in some cases. Now, we can have gradual change, but some things there needs to be drastic change. And I don't think there's been enough drastic
change
in the areas. I mean, well, let's kind of combine them, because hell, we're already an hour in. Good Lord, I don't keep hearing. Racial equity initiatives. There's got to be drastic change in Flint. There can't be gradual change. We're 7 years in, Felicia. We're 7 years in. We can't gradually get Flint back. We've got
to do things.
Go and help Flint now.
Yeah.
Or are we just going to call Flint basically a graveyard? Are we
Which
just
we can't do.
Waiting ghost town?
Yeah.
Ties into what we said earlier, manufacturing. When manufacturing left Flint, I think the state stopped caring about Flint.
Yeah. So there are a couple of things that I think about when I hear you say drastic change. One, I think it's having the people who are in decision-making positions, that positionality that we talked about, pushing them on biases. Pushing them, like, so, I can remember, for example, being part of a board that I was part of, and saying, hey, I think our board needs to do this racial equity work.
Okay.
Here's what I was told. That's not why the board members come here. That's a problem.
Right? Oh, I thought you were about to tell me something. That's the shit I told you? That's not why board members come here?
Right. And so, and this was years ago, but what the, like, to me, that just highlights, right? That, like, part of the drastic change is being able to challenge the people who are in those positions that are making decisions, to actually challenge themselves and actually do that work, right? Like, that they can't get off not doing it, right? Like, that they have to be challenged, because this is a reality, right? And it's been a reality that's been able to be ignored for far too long, and so being able to push that constantly, right? Like, that the people who are in the positions to hand in bills, to make these decisions, if we're talking about kind of the world that I'm in right now, like, there needs to be that concerted work and that very deeply personal work and very challenging work, right? If people haven't been doing it, like, and it's new to them, right? Like, it can be very upsetting, right? And but necessary. It has to be done. It has to be done.
So, coming in new. I don't know if there's a phase you go through before you get vetted. Do you hit the ground running as a newly elected? Okay, so right in the fire. Okay.
Yeah. So we're right in it. I mean, it's obviously it's under very different circumstances, right? We have the pandemic,
right,
and then we've had all the safety concerns, right, and threats, right? So so there were times when I said to my staff and my team, like, you all stay home next week because there are credible threats. I will come in. If we don't get to make the decision, right? Like, so the Speaker of the House makes the decision about how we can vote. We can only vote in person, if that's the case and there are credible threats, I'm going to be the only one who's here.
Okay.
Right. So we hit the ground running. I mean, I've been really our team is amazing. We have Morgan Foreman, who is our constituent services director, a community leader, who is, I'm excited to have in Lansing. And then Brooke Hansen is our legislative director. We've already submitted to, there's this whole process, right, for bills, right? You have to first submit them. We've been allowed to submit up to 15 bills. Well, as of today, it'll be 20 or yesterday, because we get 10 before we start and then 5 each month.
Okay.
I've already submitted 15.
Wow, right? Nice.
We're just trying to because this is important work. There are bills, like, again, we were talking about equity and racial equity and justice. And, one of the bills that I've submitted and we're still working on with the Legislative Bureau is that all of our direct care workers for community mental health and our nursing home workers and workers who work with our older Americans in their homes, that they make a minimum of $15. Okay. Right? Like, that is, it's probably going to be one of those that it won't come out of committee, but to me, it's important to start that conversation because it's long overdue. Right. And so we just have tried to hit the ground running in the best way that we can under the circumstances. Tomorrow we'll already be voting on a $5.6 billion supplemental package. So that includes stuff for school aid, things for COVID, things for small businesses. So we are in it. Right. Okay. Already. Yeah.
And I didn't realize that. I thought, how you hear, and I've never heard of junior state rep, but you hear junior senator, and then you hear senator.
Oh yeah.
Like, I didn't know if you come in and but like you said, they throw you right to it. Now, are you given flack by people that have been in the wheel longer, or does everybody pretty much have the same? Are you on the even playing surface? Yeah. So my experience, and other people may have a different experience. Okay. My experience has been that the legislators we're in classes, right? So in older classes, like their second term or third term, I feel like have been very welcoming, wanting to be helpful, trying to kind of show me the ropes and different things. I'm excited because people have brought me into the fold to be able to have leadership positions. Like, I'm now the secretary of the Black Caucus for the Michigan legislature, right? Like, so that puts me at the table, right, of things, right? Like, and I just started, a month ago, right? But they're already saying, hey, we value you, we want you here, and I'm so excited. Like, fresh blood, that too, right? Yeah, fresh blood. Too. But between that and I'm the treasurer of the Progressive Women's Caucus, so it just is, things that are really important to me, right? Like, two things that are really extremely important to me. That I get to be at those tables, like we were talking about, right? Like, who's not there? So I get to be at those tables, driving the things that those caucuses are doing, right, and presenting to our members, right? Like, and that's because the folks who are there, I feel like have been welcoming and not territorial. I haven't found that people are really territorial. Like, I mean, the bills that I'm dropping this week that we talked about, I mean, I think that on both of them, I have like between 20 and 30 co-sponsors. Nice. On these bills, right? Nice. Like, people have been so exceedingly helpful, because the other thing, Shannon, is like, if we're lucky, I have 2 years right now to try and help make a difference for our residents here. Right. If I'm lucky, I may get 4 or 6. I mean, I hope I do, right? But that's not a long time at all. No. At all. As we can see, shit can go left in 4 years. Real quick. Real quick. Shit can go left in 4 years. Like, You know, I mean, I didn't know it when I was in it. I just felt like, you know, at the end, like, damn, I didn't get any bang for my buck. I love the imagery of Brother Barack, but I just didn't feel like he did for my people. But we didn't go left. The last 4 years, we've been left. And it went so far left that it's like, I mean, I don't agree with everything that the governor says and the governor does.
Sure.
But damn, she's really just tried to hold court with the craziness. I don't believe she pulled any type of, what do they want to call it? She's too tall to be Napoleon. Dictator. Type situation. I don't believe, I believe what she's done, she's damn near probably worked from a maternal spirit. She tried to be more motherly, tried to be more, she's been overly protective.
Yeah.
How do you condemn somebody for trying to protect your?
Trying. I know. Well, so here's a really interesting perspective, and you may have already thought about this. I was talking to Dave, had this idea. He said, you know, I wonder if part of what's going on is our generation has not been asked to sacrifice something. Our parents' generation had the draft. Their generation before that, there was the draft and world wars, right? Polio was in there, right? You know, like so all these generations before us have been asked to sacrifice something for the greater good.
Right.
But we haven't, right? Like we have not been asked. We've been in wars, but people have voluntarily signed up and we've never had a draft, right? So, you know, what does that mean for us, right? Like, is that part of this, right? Is it part of that
damn, I ain't never thought of it that way. I mean,
isn't that interesting?
Here's the thing though. My grandmother told me I wasn't gonna be shit because she used to touch my hands and my hands were smooth. She was like, you ain't never done a day's hard work in your life. Now, I thought the work that I was doing was hard.
Yeah.
But she felt like,
that's
to her, my hands were supposed to be rough.
That's right.
Were supposed to be all torn up and shit.
That's right.
So she didn't see me as somebody who ever really had to sacrifice anything.
That's right. Exactly.
I know exactly what you mean, but I just wasn't thinking about it on it. Damn. I mean, yeah, we had the Persian Gulf and we had, you know.
We did.
But
we did.
That was nowhere near Vietnam. That was nowhere near the world wars. I mean, those affected us.
Oh, absolutely they did.
Affected us.
Yeah.
But they didn't cost us the way Vietnam we're still paying for Vietnam.
Well, and I think, so even the way that I think about it, I do think that like those wars, Persian Gulf, Iraq, Afghanistan, right? I believe that they cost us, right? And they cost us in real, very real ways in terms of our veterans. But again, there wasn't a draft, right? Like there wasn't, right? Like, you know, it was people who signed up for whatever reason they signed up, right? Like there are lots of different reasons sometimes for people, right, to sign up. So for whatever the reasons were that they signed up. And it wasn't people who were like, I don't want to do this, who are being told, you're going to go do it.
You're going to do this.
You're going to do it for your country.
Right.
You're going to do that, right? And so while I think there was tremendous sacrifice for like the veterans who went, you know, to those wars for us, I do think there's a difference when your generation is asked to, you know, like, you don't know if you're going to be chosen.
Right.
To go do that, right? Like you don't know if that's going to happen. Right? Like that is like that just feels, you know, like it just is. I think it's an interesting thing to think about, you know. I mean, you know, and obviously, you know, I've never lived in those generations, so I don't know. But I think it's an interesting thing to think about, like that our generation hasn't been challenged in that way.
Right. I mean, I just don't know as a man what I would do if there was a draft that started and my daughters, they were 9 months apart, but they graduated the same year. Going to both of those graduations in 1 year, what if there was a draft? I mean, obviously I'm well past the draft age, you know, things like that.
But what if there was?
What if there was a draft and they didn't my person? I don't get to see my daughters graduate from high school.
That's right.
To see them go off to college just 2.5 months later.
That's right.
All the work that I put in for the 18 years that they were on this planet,
yeah,
that's my recompense. That right there is my payment.
Yeah.
I put in on a stock.
Yep.
Here's my dividend.
Yep.
I don't get to go see that because I got to go half across the world to go fight in a war that I don't probably really understand.
Yep. That you may or may not believe in, right? Like that, like you may or may not agree with. I mean, I just think it's something interesting for us to think about. Yeah. Again, particularly when people are really struggling with, you know, some of the asks of us right now.
Right. Knowing that, I mean, they had put a dollar figure, and I never really did a lot of fact checking to see if the dollar figure was accurate, but it was, I believe it was 100 million plus possibly to fix the Flint water situation and to move forward. And they said there was this amount of money that was needed, and they could redo the plumbing, they could redo this, and there would be clean water coming out of the pipes. Why didn't that happen? Why was that not ever
done? Why wasn't that done?
But we allowed people to take pallets of water to the city. Pass out bottles of water. Families in need, rightfully in need. Celebrities, notables, just regular old folks packing up U-Hauls to take water to a city. It's an American city. Versus figuring out how to get that money. That city.
So I know that, again, I know that I don't know all the ins and outs. Of
but you know more than I do.
But what I will say is, I don't know that it was necessarily about getting the money or if it was spending the money in this community.
So, because I'm trying to take this as, because you're on a different level. You're a licensed psychologist. We didn't get into any.
Oh my gosh.
So I did my homework. So what you just said, it might not have been the lack of funds, but somebody may have looked at it and said, Flint might have not been important enough.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know because I wasn't there, right? Like I wasn't in those rooms. I don't know, but you know, and I don't know how much. Like I don't know the bottom line numbers. I don't know all that, but we have a history in our country of marginalizing Black and brown cities, communities, right? Like,
absolutely.
Right. It's been done over and over and over again, and so I don't feel like that question is kind of out of left field, right? Like, you know, is it a question of money or is it a question of will? Now, I hope it's not will, but right, like we were just talking about what needs to be done for folks to actually engage around a racial equity framework, right? And one of the first things that needs to be done is people need to check themselves and do that hard work, right? And so to me, it's not out of the realm of possibility to ask that question. I don't know that if that's what happened. I don't know, but I do know that we're still working on it. It's well past time. You know, I was just talking, with someone in the AG's office about the settlement, right? Like the $600 million settlement, and they're still trying to figure out some of it. So I was asking questions about that. And the thing that we talked about was there is no amount of money that would be enough, not for the infrastructure, but for the people. Right. Not for the people.
I don't think you can put a dollar amount.
Nope.
On the people, because now you're saying that individually or even collectively, these people have a value.
Which is not true.
That's not true.
That is not these folks, their life experiences, who they are, all their potential is invaluable. Right. And so I just think it's I don't know, like I said, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think it's outrageous. You know, like people may say I'm skeptical. Like I'm not trying to be skeptical. There's history in our country.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? There's history
when
here.
we start talking about systemic things, I mean,
right.
Go on in Flint has
right.
been going on in the country.
Right.
Not ever far-fetched to think that if we know that the revenue wasn't the issue, the main issue, it's totally
then what was it?
It's totally plausible that it was the lack of will, the lack of want, desire to get this in order. And were the people who were at the head of the table in Flint, were they inept in pursuing this? I mean, I start to look at a lot of different things.
Sure, yeah.
Obviously, I do blame Snyder. I blame Snyder for his lack of care. I didn't like Snyder from the beginning. I don't give a fuck if he is from Ann Arbor. I didn't like Snyder from the beginning because he came in so flip. Anybody that's that flippant about certain things, and this man never really acknowledged, not full-throated, acknowledged the Flint water crisis. All around it.
Yeah.
And then when he did get it put in his face, he threw other people under the bus.
Yeah.
Now I'm glad they put some charges on him, but I don't know if he'll ever do a debt.
I don't either. But do you know what I found out again in this conversation that I just had? And I didn't realize this, that even though there have been charges that have happened, it's still an ongoing investigation. So so that there may be more charges that are still yet to come. So I didn't understand that. I was like, I thought this was kind of like, here are the charges, we're done. And they're like, no, this is still an ongoing investigation.
Why charge right now? Why charge right now?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And I kind of, when they told me that, I kind of stopped in my tracks because I was like, oh, like I didn't know that. Like, I just didn't know that.
Okay, so I'm living.
So I don't know the answer to your question.
I'm living in a phase of I have to go back and think, and it's a little bit off base. But Breonna Taylor,
her
family took a settlement, before they weren't going to charge killers. They talked about the settlement before they brought about the charges here. But it's still an ongoing investigation. But number 600 million. You've already charged. We saw him do the perp walk. You know, he made it look in the news. What else is there?
I don't know. That's
like,
interesting. I didn't know that. I know.
Are there other players that they're looking at, or are there other that they could bring? Because I mean, we're 7 years in now.
I know.
And
so that's right. Like, that's the other question. I like.
Yeah, if you go through the criminal thing, can you very well put a tag on the 600? Can you put that rightful tag at 600 million? If you got an ongoing investigation, we might be talking about 1.2 billion. We could be
sure
as much.
Sure. Yeah.
That's weird to me. That I didn't know it was still an ongoing investigation. I know. Okay. All right. There'll be more there. Hopefully because I'm not going to run you off by keeping you all night. I did tonight. We were here 2 hours and we're approaching that. Mental health.
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
Started talking right at the beginning of the conversation, and I think everybody needs to have a mental health check.
Absolutely.
Children, elderly people, whatever capacity they're in. A child's mental health check can happen in school.
Sure.
With a parent there. You know, I think a parent needs to be there so they can see. Maybe you do the mental health check and you do it in one of those rooms where you got a mirror and your kid's a teacher and you see them. Then you see how the kid interacts with the parent, without the teacher, with the teacher. You do it something like that, because our mental health as people out here now has been totally shaken with COVID.
Yeah.
We were fucked up before, but COVID has brought on, and I make up words every now and then, it's brought on a new fucked upness.
Yeah.
Brought on to the point where you're talking about people that were at the top of their game pre-COVID. these people don't wear regular clothes anymore. They wear pajamas all day, every day. They don't drive. They don't go anywhere. Whole being is different. Yeah. And at some point, this will subside and we'll get back to normal.
Normal.
They're going to have to learn how to relive again.
Yeah. Yes.
So mental health to me isn't just about me getting stuff checked out because I did have this anxiety situation, but it's about knowing where everybody is. I mean, I always people where they're at mentally, and these are people that I know.
Yeah.
But I've learned there's some people that aren't the same before COVID. I've known them for 30 years. I'm having different conversations with them now.
Yeah.
These are people that I've known all my life, over half my life.
Yeah.
How do we get to a point health-wise or healthcare-wise to where this is just as something as simple, just as the request that they're making for people to get the vaccine, to get COVID testing if they have any type of symptoms? How do we get that worked into the healthcare system to where you get that one free credit report every year?
Sure. Yeah.
How do we get everybody to get a mental health check?
Yeah.
Everybody is out here.
I think that is an interesting idea. Talking about COVID specifically, and you noticing that in folks who are important to you and how changed they are, we are relational beings, right? We're social relational beings. We have been asked by necessity, right? Because there's a virus that's killing people.
Sure, absolutely.
To be separate from people. Right. And that takes an enormous toll on folks, right? Yeah. And I think you're seeing that, right? Without that interaction, without that socialization, people really struggle.
Right.
And so, we're seeing the effects of that. And I think, this is this comes from a place both of, being a mental health care provider, but also I know from a privileged place, that everyone should go be in therapy, right? I feel like everybody should. I feel like the world would be a better, kinder, more just place, if that were the case, right? And yes, I mean, you saying that, if we could have kids, have that done in schools, right? That's something that I would love to see in terms of getting that counselor ratio down, right? That we actually have capacity to check in with kids, right? For counselors to go into classrooms and do classroom visits. And even if they can't see every kid, just be like, oh, that kiddo is something's happening. I need to check in with that kiddo. Right. If we, and just open up that door, and the other thing is that I'm thinking about the parents, right? Kids are in school and, so you have not only the parents being able to see their kid, but have other adult eyes, right? Who are seeing maybe a different perspective than the parents are, and how helpful that can be. Right. And we as adults, right? We all can use that support. Yes. Right? None of us is immune from that. None of us, and whether it's, the, ability to, talk with a friend, although that's not the same thing, right? Because even one of the things that
I've got a couple counselors out there. One's name's Jen Belair. I mean, I don't talk.
Yay, Jen.
I don't talk to her as much, but she's definitely a counselor.
But even but when we go, but the contract is different, right? You and Jen are friends, right? And so there's a reciprocity that happens, right? When we go into that therapy room, or seeing a counselor, right? That time is all about us and being able to process the stuff that's going on for us. Right? It's qualitatively different, right? And being able to have that space that is free of that, means usually that if you really are wanting to, you can get into some good stuff, right? That can be really life changing, right? To kind of alter things. And you know, and that's why I know it's a privileged thing to say, right? Like to be able to have access to that, right? Like, you know, I was just having a conversation on Monday. Yeah, it's yesterday. I feel like days are time is so weird right now, Shannon.
I'm not the only one.
Oh, it's so weird.
You're looking around like, what day is it?
What day is it? So just yesterday I had a conversation, you know, about mental health parity. We're supposed to have mental health parity, right? We're supposed to. I don't think we're there yet, right? Like, I don't think we're there yet in terms of a lot of our insurance plans. I don't, you know, like, I don't think we're there in terms of what's available to people. You know, one of the things that is really challenging is that, you know, here, well, it's great, but not great is that, you know, we have therapists, but there aren't enough of us, right? Because, you know, there are more people who are going to therapy, which is wonderful.
Right.
But we need more work. We need more therapists who look like us.
Yes.
Yes. Right. We need more. We don't have enough of us. Right. You know, like, and so, you know, there are all these issues, you know, like, I mean, I can give you, you know, I mean, this is getting kind of in the weeds, but, you know, like that, you know, we have our public
system. I live in the weeds. I live in the weeds.
Okay.
My thoughts are never like there. I go off the left field with thoughts. And that's why I'm where I'm at right now, like with these questions, because some of this stuff, you just said everybody needs therapy, and that shit made sense to me. Mm-hmm. There are some people who feel like, man, fuck that. I'm not going You're the person I'm talking about. But everybody needs some form of therapy.
That's right. Yeah.
In a perfect world, your shit don't stink. But you need apologetic person, that totally non-biased person to tell you your shit don't stink.
That's exactly right.
I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye.
That's right. That's exactly right. And who we go back, right, exactly. Who we go back to and build that relationship with, right? You know, who can challenge us to change it for the better, right? Not only for ourselves, but for the people who we love and the people who we come into contact with.
Right.
Right. You know, I mean, so it's, you know, and there are lots of different ways that people can do therapy, right? Like there's lots of different ways.
Absolutely.
But we definitely need parity. I mean, the thing that I was going to talk about was, you know, one of the things that happens and hampers that parity is, again, this is the weeds part, so bear with me, is, you know, our reimbursement rates. You know, this is one of the things I want to work on, you know, as a legislature is, you know, on the public side, you know, the people who are setting rates, the agencies that are setting rates for what mental health, like the mental health systems are being paid, don't necessarily understand what goes into that mental health service provision.
Got it.
So they're making a decision about like, oh, we're going to pay you this for that. And it's far undervaluing the actual work and what it actually costs to deliver that service.
Right.
I know people on the private side, right? Because I still have a private practice, right? I'm still practicing. Even though I'm in the legislature, I'm still seeing clients. It's much more reduced because I can't see the number of people. But it was really important to me to continue. I believe in this work, right? Like I believe in it and want to continue to do it. And I just feel so lucky to do it. But I know people who take private insurance who have also said the insurance companies that the rates that they pay us, you know, like can be pretty bad, like not great. And there's tons of hoops, right? So you end up being on the phone for an hour, you know, like on hold, trying to get someone access to their, you know, like, or trying to find out something about their plan or, you know, like, and so I know people have said, I'm not taking insurance anymore. But then what does that do? That means that even less people can afford to go to therapy. Right? Because then who can, like, it's expensive to pay $150 to $200 an hour out of pocket.
Right.
So then we've even taken more therapists out of the pool for people to be able to work with. Right. So we just have, I believe, a lot of work that we can do on both, you know, in both the public and private systems.
Now, is that national or is that more in Michigan?
That's everywhere.
That's everywhere. Okay. Because I was wondering, like, do we lose therapists to others the same way we lose educators?
No, I don't think, but I will tell you this, and this is actually an area where I've talked with one of my Republican colleagues about doing some work. I have gotten unsolicited letters to move to different states to work with veterans. So so people are like, basically like, you're a doctor, you know, like in this field, will you move to Texas? Will you move to Indiana? Like to be able to work with our veterans, and they don't
so
know.
When they say move, like totally uproot your family.
Move, like all of us move there because the demand is so great. Right? Like
okay, and this is not to get into too much of the specifics, but when they move, are they talking about moving you and uprooting you and obviously elevating not only income and putting you to a better situation to where, because you can't leave here and take a step backwards somewhere else.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
Are those real offers, or is it just because the need is so desperate, they just want you to, and then maybe even with the obviously, if it's a government job, working with veterans, would you be working directly with the government, or would you be independent or private?
Yeah.
Just getting.
So I don't know all the answers to them, because when I would get those letters, I wasn't going to move. Right.
Right.
And number one, I wasn't going to move. And number two, I feel like it's really important as a therapist to have a knowledge base and expertise with the folks I get to work with.
Right.
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 I don't have that for veterans. Right. I can't bring that to them. So I also didn't feel like I was qualified. Right. Like, I can work with the people I work with, and I feel really solid about that.
Right.
Like I feel good about it. I feel so I also didn't feel like, I mean, it's not that I couldn't learn, right? Like I could go and learn, but they're asking, you know, like to me, it was like they were asking generalists, right? Like me to just do that work. And so it was, and I just remember it was fascinating to get those. And again, unsolicited. It wasn't like I reached out and said, hey, I'm looking for a job. I wasn't looking for a job. I wasn't, but it just spoke to me about the demand, particularly for our veterans, right? As we were just talking about, kind of the sacrifices of veterans that they've made throughout our generations, and and what's the support that we're giving them when they return.
So your credentials preceded your experience.
Yeah.
They really didn't care that you hadn't worked with veterans, but you were a licensed psychologist, therapist, this, that, and the other, social worker in there, I'm sure, somewhere.
Yep.
Okay. So they knew all the credentials.
Yep.
Probably did your background check, made sure you didn't type of issues there. But you had no experience working with veterans, and yet they still reel out and said, you know what, we're going to go for her.
Part of my guess is that the need was great. Right. And although I don't have the expertise in veterans and would want to get more.
Right.
I have worked with trauma, right? Like I do work with trauma.
Got it.
Okay. Right. And so that part wouldn't be foreign to me, right? Like being able to work with, but I do believe that there are going to be unique life experience to being a veteran that I would need to know about, right?
Absolutely.
Like that I would want to really learn about and know about. And so, it just spoke to me about the dire need for support for our veterans. And so I've been talking with one of my Republican colleagues in our class, who is a vet. And he and I have talked about doing some things together, like co-sponsoring some legislation around mental health and veterans, right? And seeing what's missing, like what supports aren't there for them, right? That we need to do a better job at. And so I just think there are so many ways, in terms of mental health. So parity is one of the first things I think about. I talked about kind of the two bills that, one that I'm dropping tomorrow, the other one that's being worked on. The other one, this was actually the very first bill that I ever submitted, was a ban on conversion therapy. So that's really important to me. And so I will continue, to work in these areas around mental health care, around access, right? Like these are all access issues to me, right? Like around all of that, because, and you probably already know this, but, there are 110 of us who are legislators. I'm the only mental health care practitioner. The only one.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. there's nobody with medical experience out of 110 state reps?
So there are people with medical experience.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to insult you like that. I mean, I want to put you on like a level of a CNA or something like that. You know,
no,
she's like, she's like, motherfucker, like, I got degrees here. You know,
no,
Ross, I mean, you know, I get it. No disrespect to anybody that went to Ross Tech. Oh my God, I shouldn't have said that shit.
No,
I'm kind of flipping.
I'm
sarcastic, Shannon. But okay. But no, I get what you're saying. Okay,
so there's no
medical experience. Clarify.
The mental health.
Fucked up. Okay, I messed up. Go ahead and clarify it for me. Medical experience.
No one with mental health experience.
Mental health.
Yeah. So there's no other counselors. There's no, like social workers, psychologists. I'm the only professional with that experience. There are people who have like hotline experience, which is great. Like, right. That's great.
Right.
But they're not licensed. They're not doing therapy. Like they don't know the systems. But it's important work. But so I feel like I have the opportunity to bring a really unique vantage point. Right. You were talking about this before, right? Like of not only being able to bring the legislation, but live it. Right. Like I live it with my clients.
Right. Right.
And know their journeys with insurance or Medicaid. Like trying to access that or what, like whatever the case may be, like know what that looks like on the ground.
Right.
And then can translate that to some of these bills.
Yeah.
And so
things that I'm bad at, because I'm truthful in the way that our phrase here in America, or you know what I'm saying? Well, when a person says, you know what I'm saying to me, and I don't know what they're saying, I'll say, no, explain it to me.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found, I had a gentleman, I was 19 years old. I worked at Harry's Army Surplus downtown Ann Arbor. And we had a veteran who came to work with us. And Doug was homeless. And he stayed at the shelter until I couldn't stand anymore. And then I just started taking him home with me at night. 90-year-old, 57-year-old man. Didn't make any sense. I had a roommate. We partied, girls, liquor, cannabis, all through the house every day. Didn't care. Doug went in the room, laid down, went to sleep every night. He'd hang out with us every now and then. He'd bring a couple beers home. But Doug had did 2 tours in now.
Yeah.
He not only did 2 tours, he was still going over to the National Guard over there on South Industrial.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't understand how that man was homeless. Smart. He had a wife or ex-wife and kids. He should have at least had better than what the world had turned out for him. Being 2-time, went to Nam, had the stories, been over here training. This man have a place of his own to call home. And if Doug could have used anything at the time, it would have been a therapist to really get out, because there was something that hung Doug up. I didn't know. Met Doug, he was homeless. He came in, the guys at Harry's, wherever the shelter was that he stayed at, gave him that address. They didn't know it was a shelter. We didn't have social media back then. We didn't have Google in 1990.
Yeah.
So Doug would come to work every day. He'd have his backpack. Well, when he started working at Harry's, he ended up getting a bigger backpack because then he could put his sleeping bag and put all stuff. And they're like, where the fuck does he go with this big backpack? And I told him, I was like, Doug's homeless, right? No, like he stays in a shelter, dude. Just right here. I was like, when you motherfuckers get off work, Mike and Don were my managers. Never forget them. They were like Penn and Teller. Mike was like 5'8". Doug was real tall. Just two hooligans. They were great guys, but totally clueless. In a nice neighborhood, Pittsfield Township area. Doug was country. Doug lived out in the country. But they came together to make 2 great managers for this store. This is when it was right next to Metzger's. This is before it moved over on Liberty and lost its way. I was a part of the move. When they drove by and saw that Doug lived in that shelter, they started calling Doug sir and shit. I was just like, in those stories that he tells, those war stories, there ain't no jokes. It's really like a war hero.
Yeah.
But he had been forgotten. He had been thrown away.
Yeah.
So when I started taking Doug home and talking to him, getting into more conversations with him one-on-one, he always said, you know what I'm saying? So I learned when I didn't know what Doug was talking about, I was like, nah, man, you got to explain.
Tell me.
All right, I didn't know none of the stuff I was talking about.
Yeah.
And people like Doug are damn near on every exit in this country.
Yeah.
Cardboard side. Now I know there's some scammers. I know there's some hustlers, some flat out professional panhandlers. But when a guy says he's a veteran and I look at him and he looks as old, if not older than me, he probably was Nam. There's younger ones that have, now we got to start our way for, there's the Persian Gulf, the, bracket.
Yeah.
They're not going to look like you and I. They don't have any gray.
Yeah.
Young people.
That's right.
Just sent to kill people, and they're back over here, and they're not being taken care of.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a therapist. Everybody.
Yep.
I mean, I'm going to start using that. Everybody needs therapy because truly, I never thought about it. But Doug would have had somebody to talk him through things. Doug should have been a captain of industry. He was
right. Like, think about how different. Maybe you're talking about what Doug's potential could have been.
Oh my God.
Right? If he had the support.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he came back here and he did work in some successful businesses and things like that. He told me though, when he lost his family, when his wife just on him.
Yeah.
He was having the flashbacks and living Nam. She couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Solace in another man's arms. She cheated on him. They broke up. He never recovered.
Yeah.
He lost his job that he had.
Yeah.
But he never recovered because he took his kid.
Yeah.
His kid to the point where he couldn't see his daughter. And it was nuts to me. And I did something really stupid. And Doug helped me get through it. It was crazy. His Army surplus. The day we got paid, I know the kid's name, David Cruz. He was a tennis player at University of Michigan. I found his wallet. He had his debit card in it. This is the early days when you still wrote your PIN number on the back of the debit card.
Oh, God.
The day we got paid, so I had money in my pocket. I used debit card to go get $40. And then went to Pizza Bob's.
Oh, shoot.
Now, I had a pocket full of money. Well, a 19-year-old could have a pocket full of money. But I used his $40 out of his bank account to go to Pizza Bob's.
Yeah.
Not saying that it was ever right, but the wrongest thing that I did besides taking the $40 was to take a coworker with me. Who back and then got on Harry's phone and called the NR police and told him that I did this because that kid had came back and looked for his wallet and we told him that we didn't know what his wallet was. His wallet was in my back pocket. His debit card was in my back pocket. The debit card and what was left of the $40 was in my back pocket. Well, when he called the police came in, da-da-dee-da-da-da. Long story short, I went down for a legal transaction, used financial something. I was back at work before we closed because one, the police station was right around the corner. Rolled me over. I walked back. And my aunt worked at 15th District. So I got a personal recog. I didn't have to go through any bullshit. Once my Aunt Pearline, and they're like, oh, your Pearline's okay. Because they had dealt with enough of my older cousins and probably and all that. So they knew who she was, and they knew to mention that name. If I mention that name, you're walking out. Unless I did something wrong to somebody.
Yeah.
As soon as I get back to work, Doug's like this. And he's like, you know what you did wrong, right? I was like, yeah, I fucked up. He's like, no, you know what you did wrong. And I'm thinking he's going to just ride me stealing this kid's wallet. Even I didn't steal it, it was left. I picked it up and I lied that I had it, whatever. So you took that motherfucker with you. He's like, if you're ever going to do anything stupid out here, do it on your own. Don't incorporate someone else. Told me for two reasons. The reason the guy told was because he was on federal probation from stealing computers at the University of Michigan. He knew that ATM machine had a camera. He was in the camera site because he was with me.
Yeah.
So if I get in trouble, eventually he's going to get in trouble. Eventually that's going to...
Right.
So I understood him telling me. I was pissed still, but I understood him telling me. But what Doug told me, was more beneficial. He was like, if you're going to do something dumb, you don't ever take anybody with you. It's like, because you could have a plan that's totally foolproof. But if you got that guy with you, that's your Achilles right there. From that point on, we had a totally different relationship. Like I said, I started taking the guy home and listening to him, and he gave me his life. And I used some of the things that he told me, 90 and 91, or really 89 and 90 today.
Yeah.
Because it was information that I wasn't going to get from anybody unless they had been through what Doug had been through.
Yeah.
Same thing with you. You could easily be a successful therapist to veterans just by your credentials, but can you really give them that advice if you haven't studied up on them and you haven't gone through countless cases? You end up with a whole bunch of files. And it's just one, next, one. And then everybody becomes the same, which we know nobody is the same.
Nope.
And that just lets you know how screwed up the system is, that they were willing to take you having no experience dealing with the most fragile.
Right. And, you know, and like any profession, right? Like any profession, I love my profession, right? Like I love the mental health care profession. But just like any profession, there are folks who aren't good therapists, right? I mean, like any profession. You know, and you know, and so I don't know, like, you know, what the vetting I mean, I just got a letter, right? Like, so I don't know what the vetting process was after that. I was just it always was so striking to me, because I read that as, we need help. We need help. We don't have capacity, and we just need help. And,
they needed warm bodies.
They needed help, They needed help, you know, and, you know, and so, you know, now just trying to do, you know, what I can, you know, and see if there are legislative things that we can do to get people more help. Again, you know, like, you know, you talked about Doug, right? And coming back with what I hear is PTSD, right? Like, I've never met Doug, right? But, you know, flashbacks are a hallmark of that, right? And, you know, hearing that, you know, we need to support people.
Yeah. We're at 2 hours and not planned to take you here, but we're there. I just want to ask you one last question.
Yeah, ask away.
Because I would hope we're going to talk again.
That'd be great.
I don't run you away. You'd be like, took me 2 hours after he knows I've been at work all day. I haven't dealt with my husband, my kids. I mean, how rude,
they're like,
you know?
They're going to be like, they're kind of peeking over like.
So I just want to ask this last question, because I'm huge into restorative justice. I'm huge into reparative justice. I fought a lot during the election cycle and talked a lot, and still do talk about recompense for descendants of slavery, talking about reparations. And I know reparations is a tough subject for to talk about unless we're talking about the whole thing. But when I talk about reparations, I don't just talk from the form of a check. I talk about recompense on multiple levels, knowing the debt that the government owes to descendants of slavery, from healthcare, education, predatory lending, the judicial system,
housing.
You know, there's true recompense happen, and you don't even have to stroke a check. You just got to flip this system, because the system doesn't change unless we break down the walls. Can't paint the walls. We're just still in the same system. We don't want to just eat at the counter with white people anymore. Because now eating there, they're eating a steak and I'm eating a hamburger. It came from the same animal, but it's a different grade of meat. I don't want affordable in public housing, because they're poor white people in affordable in public housing. What I want is advantage. I want to be able to own my home. I want the first level of generational wealth, just like that person got to have hundreds of years ago. Because I can't take it back there, but I'm here now. So when I talk about housing assistance, I don't want to talk about you being able to give me a subsidized housing voucher. No, I need assistance to get my own home so I can create generational wealth 101 for my family. What are your thoughts on a full schedule of reparations? I know H.R. is out there, and I know that they've put Sheila Jackson Lee, who I don't believe is the most capable voice for H.R. 40, it's out there. But the great John Conyers put this bill out there, and it's sat. It's sat for years, much like we talk about, he reached so far that nobody looked at it, and they just kept walking by it and kept, you know, then the man expired.
Yeah.
If I could talk him up from the grave right now, if he said he had a failure in his life, it was probably not getting H.R. 40 passed or not getting any type of reparations bill passed, because he lived for that.
Yeah.
For that, I mean, he was around at the riots and before the riots in Detroit.
Right. Yeah.
He saw Detroit at its heights. He saw how great Detroit was, and then he saw how low it hit.
Yeah.
It was like, damn.
Yeah.
Can we get back at least to the 60s? It would have been crazy to ask to get back to the 60s.
Yeah.
Ours dropped all the way to the point where we were below what we were in the 60s.
Yeah.
I believe reparations is the only way that Black Americans survive. I'm not talking about Black immigrants. I'm not talking about people of color. I'm not talking about anybody. I'm talking about people that have been a permanent bottom cast. And it's been systemically done.
Sure.
We have it here in the state.
Sure.
We have it in Flint.
Yeah.
You know, I know there's many white people that were affected with the Flint water crisis, but when you talk about who that hit so hard in Flint, it hit Native Black Americans. It hit people whose families are buried in Flint. There's cemeteries in Flint.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's 3 generations in Flint. And if there's 3 generations of Black families in Flint, somebody was a slave, somebody was a freedman, somebody went all. And you're trying to tell me that you can't fix the water system? Because those people, they were not only slaves and freedmen, they became our veterans. And they protected this country. And they became the auto workers, and they built vehicles, they built our infrastructures, our lights. And you trying to tell me that they're not worth you fixing the water system? Where would reparations come into play for the state of Michigan right now? There's been some California bills passed. There was something passed in a city of North Carolina. Other cities and states have passed their own type of reparation bills. And I think it's all going to end up being a big smorgasbord or gumbo, and then to really align it. Well, where would the state of Michigan start with reparative justice for people who've been marginalized to the highest heights?
Yep. So
the
I think we've been weaving in answers to this question throughout our conversation.
Absolutely.
Right? I feel like we have been talking about this throughout our 2 hours. Right.
Right.
And to me, part of it is representation.
Okay.
Right. That's a big part of it. Right. Like not only at the legislators level, but staff level, departmental level, right? Like having, because there are decisions that are made, not just on the floor where we vote, right? Like there are decisions that are made at the departmental level, right? But if we don't have representation, we don't have people who are at those tables, then those decisions get made without that voice.
Right.
And without those voices, right? And that has impact, right? So I think representation in all those different areas matters. I think that the work that people do around, we've talked about this, the work that people do around their own racial bias, whether they're legislators or department head or whatever, I think doing that concerted work is really, really important. And I don't mean just saying, oh, we now have a DEI initiative.
Right.
Right. I mean, integrating this and challenging people and really doing this hard work. Right. And having people be uncomfortable, because guess what? It is uncomfortable.
It is.
It's
not comfortable for me to talk about. And I know Black people deserve it. Black Americans, Native Black Americans, descendants of slavery. There's so many different names on it.
Sure, yeah, sure.
And we'll talk even off camera about why I'm dancing around this, because I followed what I thought was a political movement based on lineage, and it looks to be crumbling as we speak, as I can see post right now, because people were following individuals and we weren't following lineage and we weren't following politics. And I knew this was a political thing from the beginning, shied away from it. I didn't really jump in full-throated till like 18, and I ran all the way through it. And then they were some of my influencers to down ballot, because I was seeing, I wasn't getting anything for what I was looking for. Every single candidate was talking about reparations on the Democratic side. When Joe Biden eventually became the front runner, because everybody laid down, because he was in 4th place, Kamala had dropped out and she was in 7th place, reparations talk stopped. Talked to Joe about reparations, he'd already told you what he felt about reparations. So I danced around it up until the point where I couldn't dance around it anymore. And I was, damn, guys that I was really rocking with. I mean, I was rocking with Mayor Pete. You know, hell, I rocked with Tulsi Gabbard. I rocked with Marianne Williamson. I rocked with a lot of them that were speaking up for reparations. Marianne she got just bounced out. They just kind of chalked her up to be crazy. And Tulsi, I think Tulsi going at Kamala hurt her. Mayor Pete, he's part of the Biden administration. He didn't make waves. He didn't make the ripples in the pond that he should have made. He made more ripples about being a gay man than he made politically. I think Mayor Pete had a little bit more to him than just to try to be the first gay president. I think he regrets that now, because America wasn't quite ready to see him kiss his husband on TV. And they showed him that. Now, a lot of people could say that America wasn't ready for a black VP woman to a white man. But you don't really have a choice in that. But when she runs for president, is she electable now? It's a big thing there.
Yeah, I agree.
You talked about at the beginning or middle, goddamn, Felicia, I'm getting nervous and shit. At some point, swinging for the fences, you know, you can't go from 691 down to 200, so you're gonna go at 450. With representation all throughout, places like Ann Arbor, a lot of people don't think that Black Americans need reparations in Ann Arbor, but home ownership for Black Americans has gone down significantly in Ann Arbor. And the only time we're really talked about around here is affordable housing, public housing. So we need representation on city council, which we unsuccessfully tried. Haven't had a Black mayor in years. We've got a Black police chief. He's been somewhat of a house cat after his little snafu. So when we talk about representation, we not only need brown faces, we need people who can actually dig in and get things happening. Hey, bills you say you got done already, 15?
So I've submitted 15. So you have to submit them and then you get them back, and then you have to get co-sponsors and things like that. Right. And then you can start, I'm learning all this lingo, right? Like, and you drop them, right? So now I'm starting to turn them into the clerk. Okay. So then they'll go to the floor to either go to committee or be voted on. So I'm starting to now do that process. So tomorrow I'm going to be turning in 2 bills to the clerk. They'll get numbers and then hopefully be assigned to committees. And then hopefully they'll get out of committee so that there can be a vote on the floor around them. So the goal is to get it out of committee and get it onto the floor. Yeah. And that's the goal. Happens obviously, you know, by the that you just said. So do we need to get more representation to start talking about restorative justice bills? Because reparations is such a type of word for some people. But when we talk about racial equity or racial disparities or things like that, that can still, you know, be stinging. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, when I started talking about this when I was the commissioner, right? You know, I was first told, Felicia, this will never happen here. Like, it'll never happen. And I said, I'm not. And these are all people like I mean, like wonderful people, right? Like wanting to do good for our community. And they knew me. And I tried to figure out how to like, okay, how can we compromise to move on? And I knew that this was something that I was going to be compromising.
So they
on.
didn't even like try to say, okay, we can try to make this work. They just flat out told you it's never going to happen.
It's not going to happen, Felicia. And I just said, I want you to know, I'm not letting it go. Wow. So I will be back. So I will be back. Yeah. And so that's what happened, right? Like, and then we just started coalition building, right? Like it started with a small group of us.
Sure.
Right? And we started coalition building. You know, I think part of it is scary, at least when we started doing this back then, right? Like it was scary to think about a governmental entity saying, yeah, we've done things that are harmful and racist, right? And just being that blunt about it, right? Like, and we need to, and because we've been part of perpetrating that, we can be part of doing something about it, right? But we can't do something about it if we're not willing to acknowledge what we've done.
That is crazy to me.
Right. And so that's part of what we have done, right? And so I feel really proud of that work, right? You know, but you know, it was not easy. I mean, there are even like folks who would publicly be like, this is great, who, you know, like behind the scenes were throwing up roadblocks for me all over the place, right? You know,
wow.
Like, yeah, I mean, it's, you know.
So it's not even so much, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. They didn't say anything nice, or they did say something
nice. They did say something nice.
And then went behind your back. Oh my God.
So I was just, I mean, literally, so I have to tell you, Shannon, I know that we're going to need to wrap up. But
yes,
again, my
absolutely.
Like, what is
I'm
happening?
Looking at my phone like I'm embarrassed. I'm literally, I said I wasn't going to do this 2 nights in a row. I'm like, I'm embarrassed because I know I'm long-winded and you are a very easy person to talk to.
This is great. So but I can tell you that that night that we passed that, right? It's after years of again, that small group of us, and then the ripple effect, right? Like, and more people, like, not being afraid to talk about it, right? Like, and having these conversations in a very real way. And we voted, and I can remember our chair at that time was Andy Labar, and he let me vote last, right? He called on me last. And I voted, I voted yes, of course. And like, I started to tear up and like cry. And Dave, my husband, was there that night because he knew how important, how long I'd worked on this.
Sure.
And he was like, you never cry. Like,
I was like, what the fuck is going on here? You got her in here crying. Wow.
Because it felt like such a, right? Like to go from Felicia, in the nicest way, right? Felicia, this is not we're never going to do this, to like having, like, getting that critical mass to actually acknowledge these things and then set forth a path to be able to continue to acknowledge and then to try and do something, right? Like, felt like, for me at least, like that felt like truly remarkable, right? Like to actually be able to do that in concert with all these people, like, trying to do this together. And so, I think that it just takes, we're going to continue to need to do this, right?
Right.
And we're going to be told, it can never be done.
Right.
And we have those approximations, right? We just continue in that path that we were talking about, right? Like, we just continue those approximations and we don't let go of the North Star.
Okay.
Right? Like, we don't let go of that.
And that, to me, I mean, I'm just glad someone else thinks in that realm, because the world has also taught us to be very short-sighted and instant gratification type.
Yeah.
But if we get it quickly, we can lose it quickly.
That's right.
If there's no real work put in,
that's right,
there's really no real reward.
That's right.
And I just need you to keep doing the work, because I'm going to share videos, clips. Hopefully you'll come back. Hopefully you won't be like, oh, no, he kept me 2 hours last time. No. So hopefully when you see Frida, like, singing, like, 6 months down the line, like, some monumental things have happened, and I really want to talk to you again, you'll be like, look, if McFall, no. BlackWatch, no. Like, Dr. Frida, no. I don't want you to be there with me. But no, I appreciate you coming on here.
Thank you.
Open as candid. And I haven't had any not be. But but you've told me some things, and you really explain things differently than I thought you would. But we had more of just a general discussion. I asked questions in there, but the questions were already kind of intertwined in where we went. If you keep doing that work on my end, where my voice is strongest, I'll keep doing my work.
Great.
Talk about representation.
Yep.
You know, and we have to have everybody doing at every point.
We do. We do.
And if we run into somebody that's not doing anything, we either got to nudge them up,
help them. Yep.
Get somebody else in, or if we got the time, we can sit down and break it down.
That's right.
Say, hey, we need you on board.
That's right.
But we can't sit there and we can't stall out because this individual or this collective doesn't want to work with us. We got to keep moving.
Right. I agree.
Work around you. So I appreciate you. Dave's husband?
Yeah.
Sorry, Dave. Watch this clip. I'm sorry. He'll be like, Dave is going to be like, you got to email. Is that BlackWatch? Oh, delete. Hold on a second. Let me show Dave will be, deleting stuff, but I don't like keeping people from their family. I'm being kept from mine. They see me so infrequently or weird times at night. And I'm on this mission because I think I have a certain amount of people that I need to talk to first quarter. A certain amount of people I need to talk to in the first 6 months of this year. Yeah. And we'll carry on. But this is the work for me. I'm a broadcaster from way back. So learning all this to do this stuff is new to me. But work that I'm doing now, I want to do it because I got grandkids and kids. And, hell, we need to know that things are going to be worth something still for us in 50 years if we don't expire, obviously. But with this COVID stuff, everything is just so different. I have faith that we're gonna work our way out of it. But until we do, we've got to figure this thing out.
I agree.
We've got to figure this thing out. But I appreciate you. I appreciate the time you've taken and being as candid as you have been. Just keep doing the work. We'll keep supporting you.
Ditto. Hey, I'm grateful that you reached out. Thank you for reaching out. And we are, the thing that I've learned being able to talk with you tonight, and obviously I knew this about me, but now I'm getting to learn about we're not going to give up, right? We're going to keep doing this.
We're in it now.
We're in it, right?
We're in it now.
That's right. So we're going to keep doing it. And I look forward to when we get to check in again and have another conversation. It'll be great.
I appreciate you. Go
Ditto.
Dave. Go kiss the babies.
I will.
We will talk soon. I gotta text Jen and be like, almost 2.5 hours. What the fuck were you talking about? So,
tell Jen I said hi.
I will definitely do that. But I appreciate you so much, and just be safe out here.
I will. You too.
Know that you got support. One of the things I do, and this is going to close it out. I stuck up for Elaine Washington during her campaign because I saw her being tormented out there. And for anyone who needs the support, but you're not going to torment a woman that's just trying to do something better.
That's right. That's right.
And you're not going to torment a Black woman. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen on my watch.
Yeah.
I was raised by a Black woman. Black women, grandma, mom, aunties. I mean, I hold them in a different space in my heart.
Sure. Yeah.
And when I see you out here doing right, and you get somebody that just wants to call you out because you don't look like them, now they got to reconsider.
Yep.
I got your back.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. You have a good night, and we will talk soon.
I can't wait. That'll be fantastic.
And can I just say it because I'm stupid?
What?
Felicia. You have a great night.
Hey, you too, Shannon.
I appreciate you. Bye-bye now.
See ya.